we've been having a bit of I suppose, a theme this morning in terms of our program. We've just had Troy Casadali on talking about his pride in being Indigenous. Well, have we ever looked at the night sky and thought, I wonder the way the Aboriginal people of this country used the sky, how they saw the sky, what the sky meant to them? Well, Paul Curnow is the lecturer with the Adelaide Planetarium, and he joins me this morning. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Ian.
Now, you've been able to give us a picture of what the night sky was like to the original Australians. What have you discovered about the way they saw the constellations in the sky?
One of the major differences is that some Aboriginal groups pick out the dark patterns in the sky as opposed to the bright stars that we use today. We use 88 constellations today. They were finalised in 1928 by the International Astronomical Union, and they are the governing body in astronomy. So that's not to say that Aboriginal cultures don't also look at the bright stars, but they are not unique, but they are rare in that they also often have dark pattern constellations as well.
So they're looking at the black bits and creating their images through that.
That's right, yeah. And we have such incredibly great skies in the southern hemisphere. And before, large cities and the light pollution we have in the cities of today, the skies would have even been better. So these dark patterns stand out quite well. And the only cultures that do this are cultures that are in the southern hemisphere. For example, the Incas did it in South America as well.
There was a remarkable documentary on ABC TV last night about Captain James Cook, and apparently he took with him on his voyage a Polynesian astronomer and used him to actually navigate his way around the South Pacific. Cook is called the Great Navigator, the greatest navigator, they say, that ever climbed onto a ship, whether that be an airship, a spaceship or a sailing ship, and he recognised the extraordinary way that original people used the sky.
That's right.
You've been able to piece together some of the ways that Aboriginal people used the sky. I suppose for them it was the GPS, wasn't it? The way they tracked their way around the desert.
And I mean, it was very important to be able to understand the skies, to understand the seasons, and to know what sort of foods were around at the time. Living in a very arid environment like Australia, you needed to know what plants were growing, what animals were around, and so on. The Polynesians navigated the greatest ocean in the world, basically, and where Aboriginal Australians, we were landlocked basically here in Australia. So the methods of navigation were quite different to what Polynesian navigators did, and I mean they used ocean currents as well to be able to find their way around.
But the Aboriginal people, for example, if you were going through the desert, you wanted to find the next waterhole, often they would travel at night and use the stars to guide them to the next location.
And they often had stories, that stories in the stars that would they'd be able to navigate with. So they'd remember long stories that would tell them where to go, basically. And a common theme with Aboriginal Australians was the band of the Milky Way. Depending on how the band of the Milky Way was orientated, would give them an indication of direction to be able to travel and so on, to navigate.
And excuse my ignorance, because I didn't do astrology when I was at school.
Astronomy?
Yes. Astronomy. I'm sorry, of
That's
course.
Right.
Astronomy. You say they use the band of the Milky Way. That's changing throughout the year, is it? The band is moving.
Correct.
So how would they keep records of this?
Oh, very easy. I mean, we go home of a night now and we sit at home on our computers, television sets. Their living room was the sky, so they saw the sky each night. And so they would have closely monitored the orientation of the Milky Way and know during the summer that it's roughly north-south, and during the winter that the band's roughly east-west orientated. So that was fairly simple to be able to follow.
We're talking to Paul Curnow, lecturer from the Adelaide Planetarium, about Aboriginal astronomy. Now, you've got some sites on your website that take you to Aboriginal astronomy, and you've got some great images there. One of them is the claw of what looks like an eagle.
Yes.
Now, is that the Southern Cross?
That is the Southern Cross. There are a number of Aboriginal groups that saw the Southern Cross as the claw or footprint of an eagle. The Kaurna people, we live on the Adelaide Plains, the home of the Kaurna people. And this eagle was called Wilto. The Adyamatna people from the Flinders Ranges who come from the north, they call it Wildu Mandawi. So it's basically the same eagle. Stories vary a little bit, slightly. But this was seen as the spirit eagle in the sky, basically. And the Southern Cross is the smallest of the 88 constellations we use today. However, it's nice to be able to have a view of how different Indigenous cultures within Australia and also overseas see these areas as opposed to how astronomers use them today.
So can you explain the eagle's claw, how you get that image from the Southern Cross? I know it's on your website, this picture, but the claw is the talons of the eagle are the stars?
Correct, yeah. So the top part of the cross is where the leg of the eagle would come down, and the front claw would be the bottom part of the cross, the tail end.
We're going to be heading to Oodnadatta in a moment because they're celebrating some big events up there. 120 years of the local school, the Oodnadatta Aboriginal School, and also 122nd year of the local horse races. When you said you can go to these places away from the big cities and see the stars so beautifully, where do you have to go to be able to see the stars really well these days with so much light pollution?
Yeah, well, you can come and visit me at the planetarium. On the 30th, we're having a session on Aboriginal Skies on the 30th of June now. Saturday, 30th of June, correct.
30th of June.
And people can book through the planetarium. But, Adelaide's really good in that you can be about 35 minutes, 40 minutes away from the city and you've got pretty dark skies. One of my favourite places is the Flinders Ranges. I mean, the Flinders Ranges is a beautiful place to be able to look at the stars and see the night sky. But basically anywhere away from the city. You can visit the Stockport Observatory, which is run by the Astronomical Society of South Australia, and we have a public night coming up there soon at the end of May, and you can Google their site. There are lots of places that.
In Stockport, where's Stockport?
Stockport is 1 hour's drive north of Adelaide, up past Gawler, on the road towards Tarlee. You turn off just before Tarlee,
and you get good views of the night sky from there.
Quite good views.
Is
of
it
the
better
night
than
sky.
your planetarium?
It's the real sky.
Okay.
Although we never have clouds or problems like that. So it's always clear skies in the planetarium.
Okay, and just explain to people where the planetarium is.
The planetarium is at the University of South Australia Mawson Lakes campus in Building P. It's in the School of Natural and Built Environments. So we've got a nice little planetarium. Planetariums are fairly rare now. I mean, Sydney doesn't have a planetarium, and they have 4.5 million people. So Adelaide has 1 million people, and we've got our own little planetarium, which is great.
I can remember seeing a planetarium once and just being amazed at how brilliant they are. I suppose with the new technologies that you've got now, you can, I suppose, what can you do? Like a PowerPoint presentation of the night sky.
We do, yeah. And certainly when I give my Aboriginal Skies session, I do give a PowerPoint presentation first, and then we look at the stars. And the great thing with a planetarium is we can orientate the sky to how we want it. And using a laser pointer, we can teach people the constellations, the way astronomers use them today, and we can make comparisons to how Indigenous Australians see the night sky. It's
a fantastic thing to be able to do. So the special day is at the end of next month, is the Aboriginal...
Saturday, 30th of June. At 7:30 to 9:30, you can make a booking through the Adelaide Planetarium. So you can either call them or Google them on the web.
And the other one, of course, is in May. If you want to go to see we can't say a real night sky, but the true night sky, you go to Stockport.
Yeah, that's Stockport Observatory. Google the Astronomical Society of South Australia, and we're having a viewing night up there at the end of May.
If you've got some questions about the stars, I'm sure Paul will be able to answer them. Marion's got one this morning. Good morning, Marion.
Good morning, gentlemen. Not a question, just where we are at Kangarilla is out of the township, and we have the most amazing night skies. Sometimes when you get home and you get out of the car, you just look up and you're just mesmerised by it. It's fantastic. But years ago when our kids, we used to get Japanese exchange students through the kids' high school, and none of the kids we had ever seen stars like that before. They all came from, obviously pretty big towns in Japan, but they were all blown away when they came up here and saw the night sky with stars in it.
It sounds wonderful. So, and Kangarilla, of course, is not all that far from Adelaide. How far are you from the city, Marion?
We're about 38 k's, I think.
38 k's, yeah. Well, Paul, Marion's saying that overseas students are absolutely blown away when they get to Kangarilla. So, have we got? I mean, maybe this is a selling point for South Australia. Come here, see the stars.
Absolutely, and that's a very good point, Marion, because I visited Japan and I know the skies quite well. And I was 4 hours out of Osaka and I could see one star.
Is that right?
I could only see one star. So I had no idea what that star was. So it could have been a planet sitting up there or a bright star. The skies are so badly light polluted. And if you look at a satellite image of the Earth at night, taken at night, you'll notice that Europe's aglow, Japan is aglow. There are a few dark continents. Australia is one of them. Africa and parts of South America are still quite dark. But the rest of the world, we've got this problem with light pollution.
Well, I tell you what, maybe you've hit on something that the South Australian Tourism Commission could use. Maybe,
I agree.
Maybe you could organise tours. Come with me and I'll show you the sky.
Yeah. And in places like Arkaroola in the Flinders Ranges, they've got 3 observatories set up there. They're well set up for astrotourism, basically.
And is it a big thing, astrotourism? Because, it must be very disappointing to live in a country like Japan and never see the stars.
Yeah.
It would be. I can't imagine what life would be like not looking at the stars.
Yeah. Well, I suppose if kids grow up and they've never seen it, they don't know what they're missing. And to give you another example, I had a friend come out, a Californian astronomer, a few years ago, and even in California, where there are spots in the US where the skies aren't too bad, but he asked me to pull over on the way back from Stockport. And I thought he was sick or something, but he stood out the car and he just wanted to stare at the sky before we got back into the city. He just said he'd never seen skies like this anywhere in the world. We're
talking to Paul Curnow from the Adelaide Planetarium. We've had a text this morning saying why. And this is one that you'll know as an astronomer, not an astrologer. Why are the 7 sisters blue shifting when all else is red? Do you understand that?
Oh, so I don't know if they are blue shifting. So objects that are moving towards us are showing a blue shift. Objects that are moving away from us are showing a red shift. What you've got to remember, if the universe is expanding and things are moving away, some things are still gravitationally bound. So, for example, the Andromeda Galaxy is moving towards us, but space as a whole is still expanding. I guess that's what they're kind of asking.
That's a big thing to think about on a Friday, isn't it?
It's very hard to explain on the radio without using visuals. It's something that you really need visuals for.
So in fact, after the Big Bang, everything, as you would see in an explosion, if you played it in slow motion, it's all moving away.
Correct.
But because the gravitational strength of certain parts of the universe is so strong, some things are being drawn towards.
Correct. So some things are still gravitationally bound. We're gravitationally bound to the Andromeda Galaxy, and it's actually heading towards us. And we will collide in, I forget the time frame, 3 billion years or something like that.
So we've only got 3 billion years to go. Eat, drink, and be merry.
We've only got about 4 billion years left in the sun anyway, so yeah. But I don't think it's going to affect any of us.
Now, just getting back to this desert navigation that the Aboriginal people used in this country, how do we know now what was being done then? Have we got records? Did the early missionaries record?
I've spoken to Aboriginal elders and Aboriginal community members and learnt a little bit from them. Also, we have records, for example, with the Kaurna people. The main records we have regarding the night sky come from Christian Tiekelman and Claymore Sherman, who were 2 Lutheran missionaries who came to the state in 1838. And so we have records from explorers, scientists, ethnographers, missionaries, all kinds of people.
And you'll discuss this on June 30th at the big event at the planetarium?
We can. I'll mainly focus on how the sky is seen and stories relating to the sky, but we can certainly discuss that.
Look, it's wonderful to have you come in and explain this. I'd love you to come back and talk about how the universe is expanding and contracting at the same time. We'll get my head around that one a bit more. Thanks, Paul Curnow, lecturer from the Adelaide Planetarium. And if you want to know about those events, I'm sure if you Google Adelaide Planetarium,